Hey runners, shock absorption is one of the most important factors of your running form that if you don't pay attention to, could cause you pain and injury. And if you do pay attention to it, can significantly improve your running economy and running efficiency. So in this video, I'm going to tell you the most important factors for decreasing loading on your joints, improving loading on your muscles for efficiency, and how you can run your best. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Kevin Vandi, physical therapist and running specialist, here to talk through the key factors associated with decreasing loading on your joints when you run. It's called shock absorption. And what it relates to is that every time you take a step when you run, believe it or not, it's 2 to 3 times your body weight. Pretty crazy, right? If you're a 150-pound person, that means it could be 300 plus pounds per step when you run. So you can see why you want to get that right. So let's dive into it. The first factor associated with decreasing loading on your joints when you run is cadence. Cadence refers to how many steps you take per minute. Usually when you have a lower cadence, might be under 160 or in the 150s when you count it per minute. If you're at that level, it's likely that you're increasing the amount of pressure or force per step. And by increasing your cadence 5 to 10%, you can significantly reduce loading on your knee joint, hip joint, and ankle joint. So the number one thing you want to pay attention to when trying to reduce loading, if you feel like every time you hit the ground, you're just smacking the ground and it's a hard landing and you want to be efficient and soft, the number one thing you can work on is increasing the number of steps you take per minute when you run. It's called cadence. You can put it on your watch face, you can track it, you can use it as real-time running metrics. 5 to 10% is enough of an increase where it can make a substantial decrease in the amount of loading on your joints. The next factor associated with decreasing loading on your joints is where you put your trunk. If you run with a completely upright spine, even though your coach might tell you run tall, that's not exactly the best advice. You see, most runners should lean forward slightly, about 8 to 10 degrees when they run. And by doing so, they can bend their hip more, bend their knee more, and reduce loading on your joints. So that is a key thing to practice. If you know chi running or pose running, the forward trunk lean is a very important part of those methodologies, and it's something I completely believe in. So you want to practice a slight forward trunk lean when you run, because if you run upright, it's been shown to increase pressure on your kneecap, on your knee joint, and even on your Achilles tendon. So if you struggle with those areas, adopting a slight forward trunk lean is important. The key with that is you want to lean forward from your ankles and not from your hips to protect your lower back. The next factor associated with higher loading rates in the joints is how much you bend your hip. When you run, you should have a hip bend of approximately 20 to 30 degrees. Now, what does that look like? It looks like a partial squat, a small squat. What you'll see when runners get this wrong is you'll push your butt all the way forward, so your trunk and butt are in a completely straight line. And when you do that, it makes it so you don't use one of your big powerhouse muscles, which is your glute muscle, your big butt muscles. They are so important for the alignment when you run, for offloading your hip and knee joint in terms of landing forces. So you want to bend your hip when you run. If that seems hard to do when you're running, you can practice things like a hip hinge squat, a deadlift, a step up, a lunge with your physical therapist or with your trainer or your running coach. That will be able to transfer into your running skill to make it so you can bend your hip when you run and use your powerhouse muscles, your glutes. The next factor associated with increased pressure on your joints is not enough knee bend. You see, when you land and hit the ground, you want about 20 to 25 degrees of bend in your knee. Well, a lot of runners run with their knee completely straight. And what that does, it makes it so you can't use your quadricep, your thigh muscle as much, you can't use your butt muscle as much, and you can't use your hamstring and calf. So what ends up happening is you end up using your ankle joint, your knee joint, your hip joint, and your lower back, exactly what you don't want. So you want to practice landing with your foot right underneath your center of mass. That is also called overstride when you land too far in front of you. So overstride you've likely heard of, but anytime you land with your foot too far in front of your center of mass or in front of your body, then that's called an overstride. That's where you have less knee bend, and that's where you have less loading in your muscles and more loading on your joints, and you definitely want to avoid that. A simple mantra to keep in your head to avoid overstride is either land on your body with each step, squash the bug underneath your body, or imagine you're pushing a shopping cart and you can't kick the shopping cart out in front of you. Those are two mantras used in my clinic very successfully to reduce overstride. The next factor associated with higher loading rates in your joints is not enough range of motion in the ankle. This is especially important for you runners over the age of 40. What happens is the collagen in our Achilles tendon and the ligaments in and around the ankle get stiff, and they make it so our ankle doesn't bend as much. Well, the penalty of that is we end up putting too much loading through our knee, and that's what can develop wear and tear, cartilage breakdown, not fun things. So you want to work on your ankle range of motion. It's called dorsiflexion, and that means when your ankle bends, when you lift your toes towards the rest of your leg, or your ankle towards the rest of your leg. There's many exercises you can find online to improve that, but it's a key facet. If it's really stuck and really tight, be sure to see your physical therapist. They can do mobilizations and some soft tissue work to loosen that up really fast. The next factor associated with higher joint loading is a lack of glute muscle activation. Now, what do I mean by that? Activation is whether you can turn on a muscle or whether you can't. And for the glute, especially in runners, it can be really difficult to get that muscle to turn on. Even if you've been doing bridges and clamshells and leg raises and band work, sometimes you might not be using your glute muscle. You might be using your hamstring, you might be using your adductor, or even your lower back muscles. Getting your butt muscle to turn on is so important to be able to bend your hip, to be able to bend your knee, to be able to avoid overstride, to be able to lean your trunk forward. All the things I mentioned previously related to decreasing loading rates when you run revolves around getting your glute muscle to activate. Now, check it out in the description below. I'm going to link a couple videos for you about how to activate your glute that I've made that work really well as great pre-run warm-up drills. So be sure to check those out in the comments below. But getting your glute to turn on isn't just about doing the drills, it's about how you do the drills. When you do them, you want to focus on using your butt muscle. The reason is your brain can't really access that muscle well, so it needs concentration. No TV, no phone, no distraction. When you're working drills to work your glute, make sure you're paying attention because it can have a huge impact in your running form. The final piece I'll talk about today, the final factor associated with higher loading rates, is a high vertical oscillation, or how much bounce you have when you run. If your friends have told you like, hey, why are you bouncing so much when you run? That's called vertical oscillation. Ideally, you want your head and your body to stay pretty level when you run without a lot of up and down motion. The more you push off and up vertically, the harder you're going to land and the more likely you are to put load in on your joints. So you want to avoid that. And there are definitely drills you can do that. Squatting, lunging, fall forward drills, running specific cadence drills, all are very impactful for reducing vertical oscillation. At the end of this video, you can see a vertical oscillation video that will definitely be helpful. So as you can see from all these things, how you run is more important than the miles you run or the program you follow. It's about running biomechanics and running form. You see, running is a skill, and the better you build that skill, the more likely you are to reduce loading rates at your hip, knee, and ankle and lower back. The more likely you are to use your muscles. You can run for longer, run at any age, you can avoid injury, and even if you put that load on your muscles, they're going to adapt, they're going to get stronger, and you're going to be able to run faster. What an awesome side benefit. All right, runners, if you've been dealing with injuries, if you feel like every time your foot hits the ground, it's going through the pavement because of how hard you're loading, then you're going to want to follow these tips from this video. They can make a huge impact in your running form, help you avoid injury, and run for a lifetime. Hey guys, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get more of my videos. That would mean the world to me. Again, check out these videos here on screen for more helpful tips on the factors I talked about in this video. And until next time, train smarter and perform better.